I usually start with a sketch that's influenced by research. So when I'm making a sculpture, I like to organize my thoughts online as well as pairing them with the way that I think that they would turn into a physical object. So a lot of my sketches are based on like these different shapes that are influenced by what I'm reading. So recently I was reading Body High by Ryan Donnelly, and she talks a lot about Eva Hesse, who's an artist that I've looked up to for a really long time, but it's also a form of auto theory. So she talks about her experience with her partner at the time and his drug abuse problem, and how, Eva Hesse came in and became this sort of physical manifestation for her for the works. And that really spoke to me in a lot of ways. I started looking into what auto theory is, the different ways that it's used, started reading a lot more books about it. But yeah, usually everything is kind of chronicalized here, and I have months worth of info. So this is just March, but I have about 2 years worth, and I chronicalize everything. It becomes like a dumping ground that I refer to as a spider map, which essentially means things are connecting and interlocking in a way. Not as much as a mind map, which is a little more formulaic, but this is a lot more free-flowing, a lot more organic. And it's paired again with a sketchbook, which I carry with me everywhere. Sometimes it's just thoughts, and then other times it's like full-on drawings, which I haven't done in a while. This becomes a way to do something immediate as opposed to like info-based, but I'm very into citing my sources. So being online, I could hyperlink everything, and it makes it a lot more easier to find later. When I move all of this into a sculpture or some sort of flayed textile piece, I'll go into hand dyeing the yarn. So this is where I store my yarn. I can't even turn it, there's so much stuff on here. But usually I buy in bulk, like from Michael's or something, and I will just dye in bats, which is these right here. So these I use to dye different color schemes, and sometimes I'm experimenting and that influences the work, and other times I have like a set color I'm going for. So like I still have to roll it out, but this right here is like based on the color of my dog. So that's like one example. But then sometimes I just throw things in there and like to see like a bit of chaos happen with the work. It also gives me a time to like slow down with it, mainly because a lot of my thought process is fast, but crochet is very slow. So it allows for me to like work in ideas that have time to gestate as opposed to just immediacy, which is fine sometimes, but I like having things informed by my surroundings. Here are some examples of like recently finished pieces. And this wall is like kind of works in progress. So if I'm thinking about something or currently working on it, they'll kind of just go up here. This is part of a piece that I'm working on. That's gonna be part of the piece that I'm working on. So they're not completed, but it becomes like a breathing ground to like move things around. These pieces are finished and I just kind of put them up to have something there, but it also gives me an idea of like what I'm thinking of at the time and where I'm going personally with what I'm working on. So this is like probably my most recent piece, inspired by my pet rabbit that passed away not too long ago. This is a drawing on I guess like a wood panel, and it has latex as well. I like drawing for its immediacy, so sometimes I'll incorporate that as well. And all the drawings are done in crayon. So I have like a huge crayon bucket with like all the colors, as well as a bunch of flesh tones, which is usually what I like working with. The immediacy of it feels nice, and also I like the lack of permanence with it. I'm not scared of ruining something because it's just crayon, but also there's something really nice about the way I'm able to work such a simple material into something like larger or bigger or more grand. And then back to crochet. These are just pieces that are going to be worked into sculptures or that failed in other sculptures. So if we're thinking of like this piece was supposed to go on the unicorn piece that I'm working on, but it's too narrow, so instead I just put it up here. I'll use it for something else. I'll take it apart, and this just becomes a place to see all the things that I have material wise. Crochet becomes a form of textile material more so than just yarn, so this is like a way to organize that. It's kind of messy right now, but usually it's pretty color coordinated and everything's like joined together. But I've been grabbing a lot of different pieces, dyeing them to work on this thing right here. So it's like all a breathing archive in a lot of ways. The space isn't big, but I try to section as much as I can. It's like research stays there. Any sort of like experimenting goes there. The dyeing, of course, is in that corner. Here's where I keep materials, like any sort of, these are all my sketchbooks, like these I archive and keep. I do a lot of collage as well, so a bunch of different photos and small pieces that I've been saving up for a while get organized here. Gauze is a big component of a lot of my works. I try to keep everything here so it's accessible. I see a lot of my work, especially the way I've been working for the past 4 or so years, or 5 years now, to be very self-sustaining. It's its own ecosystem that in theory could survive for a while without outside intervention due to how much I've documented and how much I've kept together. So these are all dating back to 2021, before I even knew I wanted to be like an artist or what that even really meant. And it goes up to like today. It's basically like a library of like what I'm working with right now. So this is not the exact version, but this is the 1997 Fisher-Price Loving Family Dollhouse. I had a version of it, or one of these as a kid, and it's become a reoccurring motif in my work. One, because I like to draw from life, so I'm able to get all the angles and stuff. I'm able to position things within it when I'm trying to draw like one of the rooms, but also it has allowed me to make video pieces within it and also just be a source of inspiration. I have been moving from an apartment, from my house, and all these places, and so it's become a sort of sense of home that I've been able to bring with me. It's been in all my studios for the past like 3 or so years, so it's definitely been a big part of my work. I've done shows based around it, and I've done a lot of research on the company and the design choices for it. I've used the jingle for the commercial when it first came out as well, and a lot of my audio pieces. So it's basically just been this reoccurring metaphor that I always turn to. This is the largest piece I'm working on. It's going to be flayed on this bed frame, which I waited as long as I could to get because it takes up so much space. But it's probably my most ambitious project to date, and it's a model of a smaller piece I've done before. And then over here, this is a current collage I've been working on for the past 1.5 years. It happens as I feel the need to work with it. It's constructed from a set of images, and I just kind of allow myself to like add to it as I see the inspiration for it. But all these little components are pretty pertinent to the story, and it's basically just a story between me and my brother. So my studio isn't that big, and I have a lot of stuff, especially older works from before grad school, but mainly during grad school. And because I have such big ceilings, up here I have a bit of a sort of loft situation where I have all these boxes with maybe like 50 works. So I've just been storing them up there. It's relatively easy to bring down whenever, I want to revisit a piece or, I have to show a piece. But yeah, I just use this ladder and I just go up there and grab them. Usually just drop it and hope for the best. This piece is titled Unwanted Extensions. It's one of the first pieces, if not, I think it is the first piece, that fully incorporates using this like dyad model of 2 different figures. Usually when I'm working with 2 together, it's a callback to me and my mother. But this piece was constructed with 2 different balls of yarn that are essentially reliant on each other to create this sort of enmeshment. Enmeshment's a term in psychoanalysis and psychology that essentially means like the sort of toxic, a little too attached in this way that ends up being, bad for both parties. Back details were some of my favorites. I'm really interested in making sure the piece has a lot of mobility. The heights can vary, of course, and there are a bunch of different ways it can be displayed. But This becomes this sort of mother-child. I also think a lot of like Madonna's mother and child, this kind of biblical idea in this really abstracted manner became really important to me and inspired a bunch of other works. This piece is based off of Shulamith Firestone's idea of the artificial wound. She basically had this was written a really long time ago, but in her book, The Dialectic of Sex, which is one of the two books my thesis was based on, she proposed that the artificial womb would, save all women and essentially help eliminate this sexism and all this other stuff and would be great for feminism. And this was her idea, and it's never actually been brought into fruition. The closest we've gotten was with this lamb named Eve that was raised outside of the womb in this artificial womb, and this is basically what the piece is based on. I wrote an essay on it, and I was really interested in this idea of the lamb. The sacrificial lamb is very biblical, as well as, what would it look like to be able to gestate a child outside of, giving up one's body. And that became really important for my thesis, and that writer in general was the crux of the whole thing. So this piece is called Dear Mama, and it was essentially around the concept of like my mother, which I have a lot of these letters that she wrote me when I was in hospital as a kid, and I basically collaged them in there and try to tell the story that we had within our communication during that time. So a lot of this is about her trauma and also like my situation. A lot of emblems and different symbols, like The Secret, which was this like pseudoscience book thing that she was obsessed with, trying to get me involved. A lot of biblical references, of course. This stand-in idea of her, which is this grab claw machine with the 8 appendages like a spider. So this is one of the letters she sent me when the hospital took the teddy bear from me. The photo of the hospital back in the 1900s. It was like the first time I really saw her cry about the situation in a way that felt compassion towards me. And that felt like a potent place to make work from. This piece is called Brick Mother Ruptured. I learned about this concept when I was making the piece about the Brick Mother, which is essentially the institution. So when we think of the Brick Mother, we think of this sort of building that acts as a sort of care type figure. Hospitals, prisons, in this case, this inpatient facility. And in it, I mapped a sort of collage rupturing through this grid format that has all these houses I grew up with as a kid. My house, my babysitter's house, and the hospital stitched in together, rupturing through the plane that's created through this like 1x1 inch grid. The different aspects are sewn together with my hair. These rupturings are like the skin underneath, and of course the placenta being this like first transitional object when we think of D.W. Winnicott's study of the transitional object theory. The drawing of the hair is modeled off of hair that I just like cut off one day. It's another form of like slippage drawing that I'm really obsessed with. I like letting things flow into each other, especially when all my ideas are so well informed by the context that surrounds them. I like letting my mind wander in that space. And having this sort of grid-like format also allows this idea of like chaos and disruption. When I'm dyeing yarn, I usually get it in bulk of these. An order comes with 3 of these. I'll take it out and I wind this into like a small spool. So it'll look like this. And this is what I make with this yarn winder. So I just wind it up and it becomes this kind of like yarn cake is what they call it. And this just allows for the dye to flow in a little more evenly. And from there, I put this like vat or this small like yarn cake into a vat of dye. So this is all RIT dye, synthetic based, because this is acrylic yarn. And I'll get either white, this tannish color, pink, or like a gray, and that becomes the undertone of the piece. I've found that it allows for different dye segments, even if there's different dye jobs, to work together because their undertones are the same. So they'll go in here, and then when it's all done in there, I'll rinse it off. And I made this rig. It needs like a swivel, but in theory, it goes on here, and this ball of yarn goes up here, and I just wind it around so it has like enough space to dry, and then I'll wind it back up onto a yarn cake and then put it up there. So an example of a dye job would be from this to this, which is me dyeing with black, or from this to this, which is me dyeing with red. So they're all the same base and they have the same undertones, but they're different colors. And that's like the best way I can start, kind of like a painter will have an underpainting and then paint on top. That's the best way I found that I can essentially build up on colors and have the different components interact with each other as opposed to seeming like placed on top. And it feels a lot more organic. And you can see a lot of examples of it here with like the differences in color. And I found that the pieces feel more alive because, you know, they're abiding by skin logic, which is when we think of our skin, it's not just one color, it's multiple colors that are interacting with each other, reading as one surface color. When you look inside like deeply, you'll see there's reds, blues, yellows, and so that becomes important for like the liveliness and like the volume of the piece.